Hey guys, this is Matt Invictus. I'm doing another episode of Anime Seeker, the series that I recorded one episode for last year and then completely forgot about. I think I'm going to be doing more anime videos from now on because the reason I never really got into anime was because I grew up with mostly Western cartoons, and that's just kind of how I thought animation should be. I mean, I did watch Teen Titans and The Last Airbender, but that's not real anime. That's Americans pretending to be anime. But like Western animation is basically dead now. I mean, like all their shows, they're so horrible. They're made by these spineless millennial hipsters producing garbage. So I think that the death of Western animation was the final push I needed to become a weeb. So I watched first season of My Hero Academia, and the last anime I watched was Death Note, which I thought was a pretty good series with a disappointing conclusion. But I enjoyed Academia a lot more. In fact, out of the fairly short list of anime shows I've seen, I'd say Academia is my favorite. Now, I'm sure that'll change. I'm sure I'll have more favorites down the line, but at the moment, it is my favorite. So the show is not very deep or philosophical. It's just straightforward superhero action with really good writing. It's a simple premise, but it's well written. The characters are good. The animation is great. So it was a very fun watch. And something I noticed very early on about Academia was the similarities to a mediocre Disney film called Sky High. Like they're both about a boy with two superpowered parents who doesn't have any superpowers, and then he gets belated superpowers, and then he goes to a school academy for superpowered kids. But the big difference is that in Academia, he gets the powers before he goes to the school, and in Sky High, he gets them afterwards. So that's like the big difference. But yeah, I highly believe that the creators of Academia took some inspiration from a forgotten Disney movie. Now, and I actually don't really mind that much, just because Academia is way better. Because Sky High, I mean, it wasn't terrible. It wasn't even really bad. It was just mediocre and forgettable. But Academia is a lot better written. It's a lot more memorable. Some of the writing was a bit heavy-handed and condescending. There were moments where some explaining something, and I'm just like, okay, I get it. I get it. We can move on now. But it just kept explaining it, which is a little obnoxious, but I mean, maybe that's more of a broad problem with animation. Another thing I noticed very early on about the show was the very creative powers. I mean, very few characters on the show have like some generic superpower. It's like the protagonist, he doesn't technically have super strength. He has like this super powerful energy force inside of him that he like channels through his body to simulate super strength. That's kind of tricky. They got a guy who can like convert his sweat into nitroglycerin and then turn them into explosive punches. So it's like they definitely got creative on the superpowers front. I really like that. The character designs are really cool. I think my favorite character this season was Aida. I like him because he's like a very OCD, takes himself too seriously, but he's actually a cool guy. I mean, like you'd expect the super OCD character to be a jackass, but he's not a jackass. He's actually a cool dude. So I look forward to seeing more of him. I thought Deku was a pretty strong protagonist. I like how he's like a total fanboy. I like fanboy protagonists, and his fanboyism can be very obnoxious to the people around him sometimes, which I think most of us can relate to. And I also like how he just faces a shitload of adversity. He's like the polar opposite of a Mary Sue. He has to just work his ass off all the time in order to accomplish things. He has just like so many obstacles to come through. And I also like how he actually gets along with most of the other characters, because it's like, if you're going to make the poor kid work his ass off to accomplish anything, you could at least have him get along with the rest of the cast. I didn't like Bakugo as much as I thought I would. I think he's like kind of like a fan favorite. I see him a lot in fan art and stuff. I mean, my first impression of him is just meh. I mean, he might grow on me in later seasons, but at the moment he's just too one note, I guess. But anyway, most of the cast was fine. I would have liked to see some of the side characters fleshed out a bit more. But I mean, with a cast this big, I'm sure they did the best they could for one season, and I'm sure they'll get fleshed out more in later seasons. So again, very strong cast, but at least the heroes were good. But I mean, the villains were kind of dull. Like the villains, again, they look cool and all, interesting superpowers, but they just show up and their characters basically just they're evil. So the villains were not that good. Another issue I had with the show is that All Might's design was absolutely terrifying. I mean, he's a cool dude. I like his character just fine, but it's just he just looks so goddamn creepy. It's like the blacked out eyes and like the scary smile. You know what he reminds me of? Like that. If you remember that movie, The Purge, where the bad guys all wore those like scary ass masks. That's what he looked like, and he the funny thing is, he actually looks scarier in his hero form than he does in like his depowered form. Like when he's depowered, he's supposed to look like really, really kind of creepy and off-putting, but he actually looks more fucked up in his hero form, which was very ironic. And I think he also had some resemblance to a certain American politician. Last name rhymes with Rump, and I'm not the only person to notice that because there's a whole comic book about that. So that's kind of funny. But and anyway, that was like the one design that was a bit off-putting. Honestly, I kept expecting him to like turn evil or something just because he looked so scary. But anyway, the only two characters that I didn't like at all were the guy with the naval laser and the sticky balls kid. I don't even care to learn their names. Both of them pissed me off, and if they were to stop breathing at some point in the show, I would very much appreciate that. Now, next part is kind of spoilery. It's not a huge spoiler or anything, but if you don't want anything spoiled, I recommend muting the video for about 30 seconds. It kind of bothered me how no one really died this season. Like, I don't think there were any deaths. I mean, a few characters got fucked up at the end, but no one died. I feel like that kind of decreased the dramatic tension for the show, but whatever. It's a nitpick. So, I think that's the only spoiler. So anyway, overall, I had a lot of fun watching My Hero Academia. The animation was great. The fight scenes were great. It did most... I know I've said like a lot of negative things about it, but overall, it did far more good than bad. So I will definitely be checking out the rest of the season, the rest of the show. I'm very excited for it, and I will have more anime reviews up from now on. So thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe. Good night, everybody.